Lay me down to sleep, I pray the Lord that I wake again. I wake again, I wake again. I pray the Lord that I wake. Now I lay me down to sleep, I pray the Lord that I wake again. I wake again, I wake again. I pray the Lord that I wake.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to Dinner with the Coaches. I am your host, Nadira Lewis, and I have my amazing coach here, Thomas T. Taylor. I don't know what happened. We lost the volume on that, and I just had to just go with the second runner-up, but that's the point. We got to keep moving. Even when things do not work the way you want them to, you have to keep moving despite of the challenges that come your way. So, Coach T,
Amen.
how
Hey, simply marvelous. Better than good and better than most.
awesome.
Good to be on Dinner with the Coaches once again.
Yes, we've had a nice little break. We've been doing some replays, getting some time to get some rest, some much needed rest, and to get restored and get back to our place. Now we're here again with our special guest. You want to talk to our audience about who we're going to have on today?
Yeah. Of course. We could bring him in a minute. Yeah, we got Mr. Bobby Jackson on. Bobby Jackson is a good friend of ours, comes from the community that we was involved with.
Yes.
He's a business owner. Everybody will be able to kind of hear his wisdom. He does an awesome job with his Facebook Lives. Just about every single day he's out there feeding the people, nurturing his community, sharing great information. So, we're going to speak to Mr. Bobby Jackson.
All right. So you guys make sure you call up your friends. If you know somebody that's in business that is dealing with procrastination, or if you yourself are dealing with procrastination, make sure you get your pen and paper because you're in for an amazing broadcast. If you are watching us via YouTube, make sure you click the subscribe button, hit the notification button so that you can be notified every time we upload a video. If you are watching us via Facebook, make sure you click like and share if you really enjoy the content that we have been bringing every Sunday at 7 p.m. We're going to go ahead and play this video. And after this, the next guest you will see alongside of us is Coach, and we're going to say Coach Bobby Jackson. See you soon. Welcome back here with Dinner with the Coaches. And we are here with our special guest, the People's Consultant, Bobby Jackson. Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure to be seen on this platform because I know the work you guys do here, and the work here is absolutely phenomenal. It's really good stuff that you guys do, and I'm excited to be here with you all tonight.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Well, hey, Bob, we're gonna dive right in because I know you may not be able to be with us too long. So, what we want to talk about this evening for those that are out there is we want to talk about procrastination. Cool. And why do people have a hard time making a decision and wind up procrastinating? Right. So, Bobby, why don't you help us out with your wisdom and your experience in that field, dealing with individuals who you feel that are procrastinating.
Man, I am the #1 procrastinator in the world. If anyone can speak on this, I'm your guy. I found that procrastination is often linked for me to an unclear plan of action.
Mm,
So if I have a task in front of me and no clear way of accomplishing the task, I can become intimidated by it. I can
okay.
say, this is just too much to do. It's just too much time that it would take. I start making excuses, to be honest. And before I
Okay.
know it, I've psyched myself out of acting. And I realized for me to embody the best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time really meant the best way to tackle a large goal is one action step at a time. So
Mhm.
when we can step back and we can attack a situation one step at a time, I found that it overrides that inclination to procrastinate, at least for me and for a lot of people that I work with,
Mhm.
because in the consulting world, I'm working a lot of times with organizations, governments, and companies.
Okay.
And one thing that's very common is the disconnect between plans and the execution thereof. So
Mhm.
plans are very elastic in the world of economics. Elastic meaning they can stretch, they can change, they
Mhm.
can go every which way very easily. While execution is very inelastic. It's very
Okay.
inelastic. So an example would be the quarterback and the wide receiver. The quarterback is very elastic in the sense that he can scan the field left to right and has a plethora of people to pass the football to. While your wide receiver has a single route. He
Mhm.
has to execute the route while the quarterback has to plan where
Yeah.
to pass the ball. So this disconnect between inelastic execution and elastic planning creates a disconnect between the executionary slash implementation aspect of business. And that's where I found one of the largest procrastinating tendencies arise is when the planning is not easily connected to the execution, or more plans are designed than is feasible to execute.
Wow.
That was good.
Now, I hope y'all like me. See one of these? See, I got a pen and a pad. See, I hope you're taking notes. And I got a purple pen at that, right? So that was an awesome edification of it. So let me ask you, because I know in that aspect, some people are heavily gifted even in planning, and some are in execution, right? I deal with a lot of project managers, and they're heavy on one side or the other. But if they had to do it all, that's where things kind of, the wheels may fall off the wagon. So, what do you feel, based upon your experience? Do people actually get inside of their skill or gifts in planning or execution? What's your experience with that?
My marriage is a perfect example. So
Mm,
I am the planner. I am the strategist. My wife is the multitasking, execution oriented queen, and she gets things done. So, what we realized is that the visionary or strategist, the planner, is very vision oriented, goal oriented. What's going to take place in the long run? While the executor is very short, choppy steps. what needs to happen right now in order to make sure the next thing that needs to happen can be executed.
Yeah.
And I found that a team works best when the visionary can communicate in a way that allows the executor to execute sequentially. And I'm really emphasizing the word sequentially, because an executor is moving one step at a time. And if they don't know where that next foot has to land, it's very difficult for them to strategize and shift their weight, if you will, and to shift their hips to keep on balance. And that's important when we talk about the original question is, what roles do I see people embody most? Is I see when execution and planning is done best, it's when the planner can speak the language of the executor, and the executor can follow the directions of a planner. And that's huge.
Yeah, it is.
Because executors don't think like planners think. So a executor that can follow instructions, and those instructions can be laid out in a way that is broad stroked, because a planner doesn't have time to deal with the nitty-gritty details. They have to give you the direction. So that is a very sweet science that takes place when a team can speak the language needed between the two in order to accomplish the mission. So again, visionaries must speak the language of execution, and executors must understand the language of goal orientation.
Yeah, that is so true. Nadira, you want to add anything to that? That's awesome, Bobby. That's awesome. I got some more to stretch from there. But Nadira,
I too can I'm an expert in that industry too, as Thomas can relate. I have a different perspective though. I think that procrastination is not necessarily a time management. I think it can result in time management issues, but I think it has a lot to do with negative thought patterns. Not being able to see or feeling the anxiety of not being able to carry out whatever it is that you did plan to execute. So when you've got a bunch of different thoughts going in and out of your mind about how you can't perform, or the possibility of you not being able to function in whatever it is that you plan, then that kind of tends to kind of keep you like stagnant. Because you start to feel like you can't, the fear and anxiety comes in and makes you, and all kinds of thoughts and stuff come through your mind, and you start feeling like I'm not adequate enough to fulfill this. I don't have the right education. I don't have the right tools. I don't have the right and it goes back to the mindset. So really, when you get to the point where you just have to just make the decision, you have to do it afraid. You have to do it, anyway, because even you can have people who have all the information in the world and they still won't execute. You have some people who don't have enough information and will still not execute. So I realize in my own personal journey in this, it's not a matter of even having the right plan to execute. It's making a decision to go forward regardless of what you feel.
Yeah, and one thing we all talking about in common is, which is reason why we, it's titled the way it is that decision making, because when the delay, right, and I agree with both of you guys actually, in the delay of making that decision is where procrastination lies, right, and if you stay there too long, now you become indecisive even with the proper information. Okay. So, before we get too deep, I want to say something to those that are listening. And I want to say thank you to Bobby, because he's actually a Marine and he's actually serving. I just want to give him some kudos. He's actually serving, right, for our freedoms, right? So he knows a whole lot about making decisions, about people that's procrastinating, and then the detriment when that happens, right? As a Marine, when decisions and orders are not carried out, what can that imply? That's very, very important. So I definitely want to acknowledge him as an active Marine.
Yes.
So now inside of that though, I did a Facebook Live this morning and I talked about leadership. And it folds right into this, because if you and Bobby talked about his wife, if you consider yourself a leader in your household, at your job, at church, in the community, the things that Bobby said are going to be applicable. Why? Because I talked about three things. A leader is going to have to create a goal, right? Then a leader is going to have to create a plan, right? And then a leader is going to have the proper behavior to drive the two. Now, based upon the situation, he can play different parts, right? Because Bobby stated that there's a planner and an executor, right? So if you're leading in your household, there could be times when you actually do both, where you plan and execute, right? Then it could be a time where you're going to have to delegate the plan to the executor, right? So when you understand leadership, and then when we talk about procrastination, we have to make sure we minimize procrastination in a leadership role. Why? Because a leader doesn't have that much bandwidth to make mistakes, right? Because when you make these decisions, sometimes these decisions have to be fast, kind of like what Bobby was saying. These decisions have to be made on the fly. But then you have to have enough confidence, belief, and faith that you're making the proper decision when execution has to take over, right? So the procrastination part and the decision making of the procrastination is vital. It's vital, right? So what do you say on that, Bobby?
Loaded. There's a lot of information there. So the first thing I'd say is loaded. I think both of you all have brought some great insights that I can hit on as well. So the first aspect I covered was organizational and company oriented, because that's where you will see the delineation between task and execution, or the planning and execution. And the reason is because of what Nadira pointed out so eloquently, is that a convoluted mind, one that's full of different things and worries, is just not a very effective one. You've got too many things going on in your head. So businesses, organizations, and corporations have found that if I can separate the heads being better than one, then I can have the left hand doing something while the right hand is doing something completely different. And if I can optimize these two hands and then get them to work in a synchronized manner, I'm better off than trying to have one hand kind of do everything. It's not as efficient. So to that point, I was hitting on the organization piece, but now we're hitting on the personal aspect, which definitely takes me into my military role, because it's a lot more, you are the executor and the planner, which is what both Nadira and Thomas have been talking about here. And one of the things that I found with individuals and procrastination is that decision making is a muscle. And if you operate in that muscle, then you get faster at it. You get better at it. In the Marine Corps, we call it the OODA loop. It's a way to process a situation, to analyze the situation, and then to execute in that situation. We have acronyms like BAMSs. B, begin the planning. A, arrange reconnaissance. C, create. And I can go on and on and on, because it's been ingrained in my mind. And the reason we do this is to expedite the decision-making process mentally. And another piece of this is people often procrastinate due to a fear of consequences. So when we are needing to make a decision, our decisions have consequences. So we believe if we fail to act or prolong the action, we can prolong the inevitable. However, in the military, indecision is worse than a bad decision.
Yeah. Amen.
That's what we say. We say indecision is worse than a bad decision, because if you make a decision, you have more control over the execution. But if you're indecisive, you have no control of the execution.
Wow.
And
that's deep.
I believe it was Colin Powell who said an individual that has just enough information ought to make a decision. One who has too much has waited too long.
Say that again. Say that again. For the people in the back. Say it again for the people in the back.
I believe it was Colin Powell who said this, and I'm paraphrasing because this is how I use it in my life. But he says something along the lines of, an individual that has just enough information ought to make a decision. One who has too much has waited too long.
Wow.
That's a whole nother show right there. That's a whole show.
And that's when lives are on the line.
Amen.
United States Marine Corps, and I've been to combat zones on 2 occasions and seen over 10 countries where Marines were within my charge, my purview. I was responsible. And when those are the stakes, you make sure your brothers and sisters come home.
Amen.
Wow.
Woo.
Perfect person
That's
to
deep.
have this discussion with.
Yeah, that's deep, man. Yeah, see, he was the right guy, man. He was the right dude, man. because there's levels to this, right? Yeah. Now, we always start up here, Bobby, but as you can see, this goes deeper and deeper and deeper, you know, and it's a lot of good information for people to understand. No matter what level you're on, it's still applicable, right? Home, work, community, right? Military, right? So what I like about what he's saying is, and I really like, you know, I wasn't in the military, but if I would have been in the military, I would have been a Marine, you know. Yeah. I really like what he said though, in terms of life or death. See, and that's the level of importance that everybody who's listening should understand that decision-making implications have. Right? If you look at it as that serious as life or death, make a decision, right? So, you know, my at work, why in terms of work, I teach my people, my team, to make a decision, and I'm going to support them, right, wrong, or indifferent, right? Now, why? It's the same thing that Bob was saying. Decision making is hard, because I say the same thing. It's like a muscle. The more you make a decision, the more you can make decisions. If you don't get familiar with making decisions, it's hard for you to utilize all the information and make a decision. But I always teach them, you know, make a decision, because if you could have made a different decision, we can discuss that. But not making a decision is making a decision, because what it shows is you're not sure about the decision that should have been made. Why is that? That means to me, you don't have enough data. You don't trust something because you're trained for this every single day. The only difference is you're not in the line of fire, right? If you're weighing it back, then people can't see you. It could be layers before you. But now when you're in the line of fire, it shouldn't change, because you was trained the same way everybody else was.
Yes.
Right? So when it comes to business, when it comes to relationships, right, we really should understand it really is life or death, because you don't know how that decision can impact the people that's listening. For example, we made a decision, again, to go live, right? Coach Sean Raiz kind of challenged us, you know, out in the program, probably almost 2 years ago, to go live. Why? Because he said that, hey, if you say you're a coach, if you say, you know, you're a teacher, let people know.
All right.
Well, how do you let them know? You go live and talk to them, right? So on a challenge, you know, Bobby, myself, a couple other individuals, be going live for quite a while. But my point is, we made a decision, not allowing the other side of that decision to impact us. We still made a decision, and we're still on the front line, right? Why? Because we know we have something that our Creator has placed inside of us to help individuals.
All
Now they
right.
all talk about, public speaking is it was one of the biggest fears, right? So everybody that's watching, when you go live, that's like public speaking. Most people are scared to death. Scared to death. But again, we say, feel the fear and do it anyway. Bobby?
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to hit on one more thing here, because I think we've done a pretty good job at ironing this one out. Commitments, decisions are commitments, and I think that is oftentimes overlooked or subconsciously overlooked, like either intentionally or subconsciously. And a lot of you all have probably read the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And in that book, he shares the story of the independence of the United States and how there were 50 signatures that were on this declaration saying to Great Britain at the time that give us liberty or give us death. That's what they were committing high treason. And treason was punishable by hanging at that time. So what the author goes on to explain is that when you make a decision, you make a commitment to see that decision through to the end. And our culture is a culture of refunds, do-overs, and mulligans. Yeah. And when that is your mind frame, divorce, it's rampant. But decision, when you make a decision to say I do, to death do us part, means a lot less than it used to. And purchasing something from a vendor means a lot less than it used to. Like, I can take this back as long as I have this receipt. Wait, better yet, you're Walmart. I can take this back without a receipt. You just want to make sure you don't get a bad review. So it's the environment, unfortunately, that we're living in, at least in America, is becoming less and less conducive for decision makers, because we are required to commit to things less and less. And much like any muscle, the more you use it, the more it works for you. The less you use it, and the more you allow yourself to be crutched. You put yourself up on crutches, you atrophy. It sets in over time. And unfortunately, that's what's happening to us. And you see it with degrees. And I'll end it with that. People will hop into a degree and say, "Oh, I don't like this." I'm not feeling it. And at the end of the day, yeah, that's your choice. But whatever happened to finishing? Yeah, you didn't like it. Fine. The Marine Corps is big on that. You enlist at 4 years at a time. We stand on honor, courage, commitment. The Marine Corps wins wars. Why? Because we commit to the execution and the winning of the war before we leave. There was a general once. I keep saying I'll end with this, but I'm going to try to end with this. There was a general once, and he said one of his troops came up to him and said, "Sir, we're surrounded on every side. What are we going to do?" And the general looked at him and said, "You got to look at it from the right perspective. If we're surrounded on every side, that means we can attack from any angle." So they were so committed to winning. It was much like the burn the boats. Hey, came on these boats, we're burning them. The only way we get back is on there. So there are so many stories where commitment is the result of a decision, and they are synonymous. And when we try to make decisions without assuming the responsibility of commitment, we find ourselves procrastinating, at least.
Wow.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
That's amazing. I think also another aspect to look at it is too, is environment. You have to optimize your environment with the military. I've never been in the military, but I do understand from a practical standpoint is that you have to, in order for you to execute anything that they have trained you in, they set the environment. You're not in a civilian environment, right? So your environment has been optimized. So it's a lot easier for you to make commitments because of your environment that you're in. And I think the same thing has to happen in order to get through procrastination is you have to optimize your environment. And with us being in the coaching industry, we always say it's important to be in a community, of like-minded individuals so that you can be able to get through those difficult decision-making process because you're in a community with like-minded people that can encourage you to make the commitment even when you don't feel like it or feel discouraged or going through negative mindsets to make that commitment. When you're in the military and you sign that paper and you commit, they don't just tell you to sign the paper and that's it. You sign the paper and they start the process of creating the environment so that you can, which is the basic training. That's why you go through basic training so that they can create an environment to strengthen, because we talked about using those muscles, right? To strengthen those muscles so that when you get done on the other side of basic training, you're ready to make a commitment to serve your country, whether you feel like you are or not. You make the environment is conducive for you to make that decision regardless.
Yes. I love that you said that because you're so on the money. You're so on the money. One part of me said, "Oh, they don't make it conducive; they make it stuck." But the other side of me said, "I get exactly what you're getting across here." But that's so true. Is because they do two things. They and this is a secret for you guys. You want to take this one. It's been working for over 250 years. This Marine Corps, I don't share this with everybody. All right. So the Marine Corps has a process. And we take Marines, or we take civilians and turn them into Marines in 90 days. 90 days. Now, how do you take someone from what we call a nasty civilian to a walking, talking, gun-slinging rifleman that will run into any situation with honor, courage, and commitment? And he's coming out with the win. He's coming out with the win. So how do you do that? And what they do is they start with a shocking phase, not electric shock, but culture shock. They shave us bald. They yell at us. They push us to the limits, to the brink. And when you are shell-shocked and popped, then they dress you the way they want you to look. And the whole time that they're molding you and dressing you, they have what we call drill instructors. And these drill instructors are the epitome of what you are to become. And as they run and scream and yell and drill into you these core values, I will never forget: low volume brings pain. Pain brings discipline. Discipline is instant will and obedience to all orders, sir. We'll never forget it. Said those words 10 years ago. Oh, yellow footprints. But they drilled it into your head.
Yeah.
Day in and day out and day in and day out. And by the third month, we know how to mark. We have things like walk that tightrope, tight, tight, tight. Roll those shoulders back. 30-inch steps, 40-inch back to chest. All these different things are what we call ditties. And I say all of that to say, when Nadira brought up environment, it's everything. When you go on to Paris Island, you don't believe any other part of the world exists. They take your cell phones. There's no TVs. There's no radio. You are writing snail mail. And this was in 2012. Cell phones exist, y'all. Facebook exists. You forget. Not that you forget. You are so secluded, so separated from the world that you believe that all that exists is pain, being weakness that will leave your body. Pain is weakness leaving the body. Wow. And that's how they train you. And in 90 days, when you step off after what we do, the crucible, which is a very long, grueling experience, but if you make it through, you get what is called your EGA, your Eagle, Globe, and Anchor, which represents your commitment to the country, core, and the organization itself. And when you have that EGA, the next stage, takes place. So I wanted to share that with you guys to really show what is meant when we say environment, because the environment must be optimized, but it also has to be challenging. It's like the environment has to push you to a breaking point. I'm actually going to talk about this sometime next week, but I'll end with this: is if you don't have a spot, you're not lifting enough. Like, you get a spotter when you know your best isn't going to be good enough. That's why you get a spotter, because you know that I can do a good amount.
Yeah,
know that my best is going to fail me. That's what that person is there for. If you don't have enough weight on the rack for you to have a spotter having your back, then load the rack up. You're not pushing. You're not going to grow until you say, I ain't got it. And they say, yes, you do. And then they say, that's all you. That's all you. That's
lock them out. Lock them out. Lock them out.
Locking it out, and your arms is shaking, and you like, you're breathing hard and heavy. That's where the growth happens. That it's in that breaking down. It's that environment, the gym, where the sweat is acceptable. Well, failure is acceptable. Failure is not acceptable on the court. It's not acceptable on the field. It is not acceptable on the track, but it is acceptable in the gym. What does your environment look like?
Wow. That was so rich. I felt like I just ate a whole piece of chocolate cake.
Yeah, that was awesome. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Bobby's going to have to cut out. Got some other things that he has to do, so we're going to go to a commercial break. But Bobby, we're going to let you have the last words before you leave. Let them know how to follow you, where to find you, things of that nature before you leave. We appreciate you. Great job.
Absolutely. It's very ironic that I had such an amazing opportunity while everything we're doing is under construction. I ran an accounting firm that has transitioned to a management consulting firm. So we went from Pinstruck Innovations to now Iron Bridge Consulting Group. So right now, everything is under reconstruction as we rebrand and we repurpose the organization. However, I follow both Nadira and Thomas on the regular. You can find me on Facebook. I'm linked into their pages very thoroughly. Other than that, I'll try to send them some links that they can post into the group after this is over. And then you can follow me at least on my basic social medias. But unfortunately, right now, website is under reconstruction. However, it will be, just for the record, ibcgconsultants.com. So we have the domain space, so that is locked on, but we are repurposing all of the content and getting everything structured. But the last words that I'd like to leave is this was an amazing opportunity, an amazing experience, and I love what they've done and what they're going to continue to do here. And I'd love to continue to be a part of this in any way that I can. It's amazing.
Good deal. We appreciate you. We appreciate you, man. Great job. So you can see, we always start with a topic, man, and we just go deeper and deeper and deeper because it's multifaceted, right? It's just not really one-dimensional. It's really larger than that, right? But we have to get there, man. And I'll tell you, man, your military, your Marine background and experience, I mean, it weighs volumes. I promise you, it really does. Because just think about how many people will never, ever get a chance to have that same experience, right? Yeah. But they can take the experience that you learned, right? And you do a great job in teaching people these certain little things that can help them, right? They're tools. Nadira always talks about that, having the proper tools in your tool bag, As you can see, I got a whole page in there. I got me a whole page. I don't mess around, boy. I do not mess around. I was once told that the shortest pencil is longer than the longest memory. So write it down.
Wow.
Mr. Nadira, want to take us to break? Bobby, hey, we appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Thank you all for having me. It was a pleasure.
You're welcome. And after that, we'll be right back after this. All right, and we are back here with Dinner with the Coaches. With this is the first time it's just ever been us at the end of the show.
Yeah, ain't that the truth?
Was that good or what? Like,
yeah, that was awesome, man. That was awesome.
Go back and watch that. That was, I mean, Bobby was definitely the perfect person to discuss a topic like procrastination and his examples and how he used the military as a way to help us understand not only what procrastination is, but how to get through it. That was amazing.
Yeah, that was good because, that's why I wanted to bring that in, because a lot of people don't know his background, and that background, it speaks volumes, right? So just think about, for those that are listening that are in the military, and then transition over to, they call it civilian world, right? I always tell people, like, the best people, and I promise you, man, the best people that I hired in my career has been those who have military background. Because their ability to be just what he said, to be disciplined, to be poignant, they're always on time, right? Like, there's certain things that they already come with, like I call them intangible.
Right.
They already have them, right? Like, I don't have to be on them, right? Those are the best people that I ever hired, in my career. So Bobby's experience was very applicable, right? Because he said, hey, he led troops, man. He's been in, the front line in these different scenarios, man. So things that and I'm glad we talked about this today, because things that we kind of arbitrarily take for granted, right? That there's somebody somewhere fighting for our freedoms who take those same things a little bit more seriously than we do, right? But if we use the fundamental foundation of understanding how critical and how important every decision that we make or every decision that we don't make really is, we would as individuals, we would start to make different decisions,
Right. I think it was important too. I like when he said not making a decision. When you don't make a decision, that's just as bad. And most people get stuck in trying to make the right decision, and wind up not making a decision, not realizing the decision has already been made. So there's really no way to avoid making a decision. And as our topic says, you have a hard time making decisions. Well, there's ways that we've given you all some ways to be able to get through that. And one thing I want you to understand and realize, just because you choose to delay your decision doesn't mean a decision is still not made. Instead, whether you delay it or not, a decision still has been made.
Yeah, that's true. He talked about indecision is worse than no decision. And that fence, hey, that book says about a double mind, right? That book that some of us read sometimes, hey, it talks about, having a double mind, and in business, that's very significant, as a leader, family, again, like I talked about this one on my Facebook Live, about really understanding what the aspect of leadership really is. I kind of kept it light under about 15 minutes or so. I could have really went further and deeper. But just if you really consider yourself a leader out there, those individuals that are listening, like, these things that we're talking about are very, very vital to not just you, but to the people that's following you in all aspects, right? From your household, right? Even single mothers, right? they're still in a leadership role, because if they have children, that are younger, and they still need their mother's ability to make a decision.
Right.
It's important. And we know how many, single mother households that are out there. I mean, statistics are out there. It's a lot, right? But I think this can help people in different facets, in different areas, right? Because there could be people out there listening who are on the fence about making a decision to get into business,
Right.
right? To get into stocks and bonds, right? To get into this cryptocurrency, crypto world where, they hear crypto and it's almost like kryptonite, right? Because it freezes people, man. Like crypto, because like, wow, I don't know nothing about that. Like, is that stuff real? Like, is it gonna just go away, or is that a fad? And I'll tell people, I say, hey man, look, crypto.com, right? And there's no advertisement on here, but crypto.com, right? Purchased the rights to have their name on the Staples Center for $700 million. Just think about that. Right? They don't own the Staples Center. No, just to have their name out there. And if you look at different sports things, they're doing more and more advertising. Crypto.com is, right? And I just tell people, all it is now you don't have to believe it. You don't have to agree with it. You don't even have to understand it. But guess what? It's still happening.
Right.
And
I think too, the bottom line is, I think that needs to be talked about, and is we overlook. Fear is the foundation for a lot of the reasons why, we don't make decisions, because the fear of failure, not realizing that failure is a part of success.
Yeah,
there's nobody that has entered into any decision-making process and not have dealt with the fear of, did I make the right decision? Was this the right thing to do? And then had the ability to say, okay, well, I may have not done the right thing in this decision, but the next decision, I'm going to do better. But fear holds you hostage at the point of your last decision-making process. You didn't make the decision, you didn't make the right decision, the last decision. So now any decision that you make from here on out is going to paralyze you, because your brain is going to remember. And I heard somebody say this: we think that our brain holds the most memory, but it's really our cells, that hold the most memory.
Wow.
When a mother and father gets together and they create a child, why do you think you have character traits or different habits from either side of your family? It's because of the memory that's embedded into that cell, right? It's in you.
That's
so
deep.
you do things naturally that somebody else said that your mom is, then you're like, I find myself doing the same thing that my mom or my dad did. And so sometimes that fear that's been embedded into your cell, into your mind, and it's been embedded into your subconscious, prevents you from moving forward. And so when you deal, at the end of the day, you have to deal with, in order to go forward, whether it's in decision-making process or whether it's to go forward and be, like Bobby said, to bring it, action, into being able to do whatever it is that you need to do, you have to deal with fear.
Yeah, that's awesome. I see, do we have any listeners out there? I see Alicia, Khadija.
Yes. And I wanted to acknowledge Alyssa. Alicia said hello. Hi, Alicia. And Khadija said, hey. And she was saying that is so true. Thanks, Khadija and Alicia, for talking with us here on Dinner with the Coaches and interacting. We appreciate you, and we don't take it for granted.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Bobby was dead on, boy. He had a lot of good information, a lot of great information, because, sometimes we do things and we do them so well, we really don't know how it really impacts those around us, right? Because that information that he shared with individuals, like he said, he ran something off that he learned that, 10 years ago, but it was just embedded in his psyche, right? In his fiber of the essence of his being, of who he is, right? So now when that happens, it's easier for an individual to walk that out, right, to live that way because of what has been ingrained inside of us. Now, to your point in terms of fear, that's the other side of this, where sometimes we get into a position where we start to believe what they said about us, Nadira. And it impacts our ability to make a future decision,
Right.
based upon what they said about us and who they said that we were, or who they said that we would never become.
Right.
Right. So now when you kind of, mirror that to decision making, it slows down that process, that decision making process, because like Bob was saying, like there's certain things that go, like just like ingredients, like baking a cake. There's certain things has to go into making a decision. And if you're utilizing quote unquote bad ingredients, what's going to happen to that cake? What's going to happen with what you're trying to produce? Because you're adding what they said about you, and then you're trying to sift it out. Right? Instead of discarding it before you add it to the decision that you're trying to make.
Wow. There you go. You have it from the greatest inspirational coach that there is, visionary coach.
Oh man, yeah, that's a deep one, because unfortunately, we listen to a lot of that rhetoric about what they said about us, right? And again, I always say, hey, you may have did what they said, but they're not who you say that you are.
Right.
That's not who. That's not you, right? Who they say that you are. You may have did it, but that's not who you are. Because unfortunately, we tie the things that we did with who we are. And they're diametrically opposed. They're separate. They're two separate things. You know what I mean? So again, we just want to encourage those out there that are listening, take your time, like slow down for a moment, right? Count the cost, right? Do your research, right? But then make a decision, right, wrong, different, indifferent. Just make a decision, and you'll learn in the process, right? Like there's something about decision making that sometimes people want to take out, right? And unfortunately, like they always say, we live in a microwave society, man. Just pour water and stir type of thing. But there's a lot to be said about the process. Two things: the process of getting to a point to make a decision, right? Now, in this information age, there's different ways out there, to get information. And Google is people's best friend to get information on that decision. Okay. That's one aspect of it, but then count the cost of making that decision. Now, one part of that is key. One portion that the key portion is to understand, who does that decision affect? Who does it impact? Right? And that'll tell you the grade, like the level of importance of that decision. Right? Now I challenge those that are listening to make decisions in the future. Why? Because Jim Rohn talks about the greatest pull is a pull of the future. Right? So I challenge individuals to make decisions today that will impact their unborn grandchildren. See, that's a different level of decision. That's different than, what am I going to eat tonight? See, that's a decision itself. But that level is not that high as this decision that I'm going to make: buy a house, buy a piece of land, buy a piece of property, make an investment, right? Like there's different levels to decision making that impact different people in your lives in different ways. You see, then you understand the seriousness and also the urgency of making that decision. Mr. Deere, because I can go.
Wow, I'm so cool. I'm over here just thinking about the fact that he was talking about how little, when you have little information, make a decision. And when you have a lot of information, when you have a lot of information, you tend to delay your decision making process. And it's funny because there's so much truth to that, because we're so used to, especially in our society, have it your way. So you have all these choices. We have so many variety of choices that sometimes we sit and we delay which way we're going to go, because we have so many choices. And so the more choices that we have, and that happens in relationships, that happens in business, and choosing food. You go down the street and there's like 10 different choices to eat from. And some decisions, some people can they are one track and they can say, this is what my mind is set on, and they go at it. And then some of us, having those multiple decisions, stagnate us. So I think, and I remember as a kid, my mom used to always say, I used to be like, wow, she would buy something and then I'll find out that there's different variations to it. And I'm like, well, how come I didn't? She said, because I know if I give you too many choices, we'll be here all day. And I laughed about it. And I even got mad about it. But then I realized there is some truth to this. The more this, and my mother knew me enough to know to just make some decisions for me. And I didn't know, I worked better that way. So now I realize that, and I'm training myself and training those muscles that we're talking about to make decisions, and make decisions quickly. And when you make a decision, don't turn back. Make the decision and keep going. Because if you make a mistake, if you go down a direction, you can always change the course of your direction. If you decide this was probably the wrong choice, then I know the next choice that I make, I'm gonna change the course of my direction in my next choice. So
yeah, that's so true, because forward movement, is positive progression, right? When we get stuck on procrastinating and not making a decision, and every the majority of us are guilty of it. I know I got areas that I'm working on, relative to my book. Let's say that I gotta make a decision. I've made one, but I gotta make another decision. Stand on it and move forward. You know what I mean? To get the job done, to get the task at hand done, and realize that the task at hand is bigger than me.
Right. And be okay with, and there are some things that are going to require being delayed, and you have to be able to know and be realistic. You have to be realistic in what it is that you have to make a decision about. If you know that this decision is going to require a little more, like you said, information, or if it's going to require some more research, or if it's going to require more time, be realistic about that. That it, don't look at it as a point of failure, because sometimes we don't make a decision because we feel like we're going to fail, not realizing that failure is a part of success. It really is. It is a part of success. So if you're realistic about something, a project or something that you need to do, and that this project is going to require 6 months, then be okay with that. Be okay with the process. And understand the difference. I did a video a couple of months ago, and I said, is it procrastination, or is it, what did I say? I don't know, had like a little brain fart. It was is it procrastination, or is it preparation? And I think sometimes we have to understand that sometimes we're in preparation mode. And then there's some cases we're in procrastination. So you have to know the difference. You have to know if you're preparing or you're procrastinating. And the only way to know that is to be realistic, right? And some people use preparation when they really should be moving, And then there's some people that are procrastinating, and there's some people that should not be moving, should be still, and should be prepping. Right. So I think when we understand that when we're realistic, some of us are procrastinating and some of us are in preparation. So when you know the difference, I think it makes it easier when it comes to dealing with making a decision.
Cool. Yeah. Well, hey, ladies and gentlemen, we're at the top of the hour. Yeah. They always say time flies.
Yes.
And again,
Yeah.
Wow, it goes fast. This was good. We had a good time. I hope it was good for those that are actually, watching, tune in, maybe watching on the replay, but really kind of take a moment, ladies and gentlemen, and really think about where you are, right? Where you say you want to be, and then, creating a plan on how to get there, and eradicate procrastination as much as you can, and just make a decision and be okay with that decision. And you can learn inside of that decision, but, put yourself in a position where you're making more decisions.
Absolutely. Well, we are out of time. Thank you so much to each and every one of you that engage with us every Sunday at 7 p.m. Make sure you join us again next Sunday here on Dinner with the Coaches with Thomas Taylor III, visionary coach, and myself, Nadira Lewis, inspirational life and business coach. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you on the other side of procrastination. All right, we are done.
I think we're still live.